Are we good? We good? And we're live. Guys, can you let us know, when you hop on here, can you let us know? We got a new microphone. We want to make sure that it works. But Eric, it's on, what is it, 5th of April? Yeah. April 5th. So that's Eric and I talking about training, the science behind how this stuff actually works. Today we're going to go deep into recovery methods and how, how does sleep play in, how does nutrition play in, how does the input play in, not just the output. So not just the training, but also the input of what of how we're recovering from these things, because that's where all the magic happens. You don't actually get strong in the gym. You get strong during the recovery. You don't actually lose fat while you're working out. You lose fat in the recovery. You do the training effect to get this, to create a stimulus so that hopefully the body does this thing over here that we want it to do. And that happens in the recovery. So that's really what we're going into today. And please click the share button. Send this out to everybody you know. This is a topic that doesn't get its fair shake. In my opinion, what do you think?
Yeah, totally. Everyone's more focused on imposing the stress than really putting more effort into recovery. Yeah, totally. So we're talking about stress, recovery, adaptation. In the context of strength and conditioning, this is just the process by which we increase performance or get gains, whatever that might be. When I say that, gains, that might be bigger muscles, that might be increased strength, increased power, increased endurance, whatever physical capacity you're trying to improve. It's all through the same process of stress, recovery, adaptation. And so why don't we start out with just kind of defining what we mean by each of these, and then we'll go into each one.
Yeah, that works for me.
That's more in depth.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So stress, when we're talking about stress, we're talking about a specific response by the body to a stimulus that disturbs homeostasis, or kind of the natural set point. And it results in a decrease in performance that's true for mental or physical stress. And
big point.
So this, and we'll get more into that too. That's a huge point. And this is what creates the stimulus for adaptation. It creates the stimulus, and then recovery is a return to normal state of health, mind, or strength. So coming back to baseline, recovery is where all the magic happens. After you impose the stress through heavy lifting, heavy training, intense training, whatever it is, recovery is where you really get that return on investment. You're building back up and going above your previous set point. And then adaptation is a change or process that changes within the organism that makes it better suited to its environment. So in response to this stress, it needs to get better, and so it doesn't die. Essentially, is the underlying process.
Yeah, right? If you're going with the extreme, right? Yeah, that's how we end up dying in any way, whether it's old age, cancer, accidents, anything like that. There's too much stress placed upon the body can't take it, and we end up not being able to continue with homeostasis. So now, is there with stress, when you read the definition of stress, it almost always sounds bad, right?
Right. Yeah.
And stress gets this really nasty word, and I do think that that stress can be a really nasty thing if we let it. And it's probably the thing that is really the detriment to all of our our diseases and our lives and all this kind of stuff. But is there such thing as good stress?
Yeah, for sure. And so try to forget about stress being inherently bad or good. As coaches, we try to look at it through a context of being productive or non-productive stress. So a productive stress being any stress that creates a stimulus for the desired adaptation that you want. Increased muscle size, increased strength, and whatever physical performance you're going for.
It's a stimulus.
That creates the stimulus for that. Yeah. And then a non-productive stress would be everything else. All the stressors, accumulated stress that does not facilitate a desired outcome. And now that can be a mental. That can also be physical. You could be training totally wrong. for what you're trying to do. You know, if you're trying to get stronger and you're just going on runs every day and increasing distance, that would be non-productive for your desired outcome. Whereas for an endurance athlete, that might be what they need.
So it does depend on your training age a little bit there, but at the same time, we say this on the show all the time. If you haven't gotten off the couch in 6 years, you can do anything and make progress.
Right.
You can walk around the block and make progress. So we're talking about a person who has worked out for a little while, and we have to start at some point. Just when you first start, maybe just doing anything is better than doing nothing, sure. But at some point, we have to look at this thing. We have to work smart, not just work hard and harder and then harder and then harder, because it's not going to get us anywhere. And what we really need to emphasize here is that your body does not differentiate between stress. It does not, whether it's mental or whether it's physical, whether it's a ton of plyometrics, a bunch of heavy squatting, bunch of heavy deadlifting, bunch of bench press, or you got in a fight with your significant other, or you're pissed off because of something happened at work, or work was really stressful. It does not matter. The body does not differentiate, and you don't recover as well in that state.
Right. Yeah, totally. All that stress is getting dumped in the same bucket. It has similar effects on your endocrine system, your hormonal system, your mental state, and
it's almost all systems. I mean, like your autonomic system is going to be off. Like if we put a heart rate monitor on you on a really stressed out person, their heart rate is just going to be like all day long. Yeah. You put a heart rate monitor on someone like me, someone that's pretty amped up and going all the time. Well, like you're going to be like, what's the matter with this guy? Put a heart rate monitor on like Rachel, for instance, who's just very relaxed, very calm all the time. Like, is she alive? What's going on here?
Yeah. And so we see real life examples of this all the time. Say you're if you're really stressed, maybe you're going through a divorce or something, your training in the gym is going to suffer. Another example, like studies have shown that like college athletes are more at an increased risk for injury during midterms and finals week, because they're doing the same level of training, and then they dump all this extra stress into the equation that wasn't there before. And if you don't recover to meet that amount of stress, if you don't get additional recovery to dissipate that stress, your total levels are higher. And
what do you mean? Like your total levels of all the chemicals that are rolling around your body that make you able to operate, those are more towards the stress side. And so if they're in that stress side, it's like your body is getting ready to fight or flight. Your body is getting ready to run and fight the saber-toothed tiger, or run away from the saber-toothed tiger, or do some. And so it can't recover in that state because it's dumping everything in order to survive. And so you just don't recover very well there. And then we end up injured because the tissue can't take the stress imposed upon it. And it doesn't matter if it's mental or physical, it's happening.
Yep. And it's kind of good to think about this stress on a continuum, because even when you're really stressed out and your stress levels are really high, you're still recovering to some point, but you're just the total net of that is a lot more. You're collecting a lot more stress than you're dissipating. Where on the other side of that, when you're sleeping, right, the time when your recovery is at its highest, you're dissipating stress the fastest. You're still stressing a little bit, like cells are still dying, things are getting rebuilt, et cetera. So you're always living somewhere in that continuum. Really, the goal here is to optimize to stay in the highest state of recovery that you can.
Yeah, and I think like if we're going to talk about balance, it's about like when you're training, you should go all in on training. When you're recovering, you should go all in on recovering. And to some of you, this is going to be like, well, I'm not a power lifter. I'm not just trying to get as strong as I possibly can. Well, this works in everything. This works in fat loss. This works in anti-aging. This works in strength. This works in physical therapy. This works in recovery from an injury. I know that's kind of physical therapy. It works in day-to-day. It works in every single aspects of our bodies. This is not just for powerlifters or just for performance athletes. It's everything.
Yep, everything you just said, it's all taking advantage of that same process. It's the exact.
Did you read the sleep study that it just came out a couple years ago? But basically, they did. I think they took 1,000 people. Anyway, they had a pretty large base of people, and the only variable that they changed was different between each group was that one group got 2 hours more sleep every night. That was the only difference that they changed. And they were both on similar fat loss, kind of whatever you want to call it, training programs, protocols, whatever. And the crazy thing was with the group that had the 2 extra hours of sleep, their fat loss doubled.
Oh yeah.
So they had double the fat loss progress than the other group did, and that was the only differentiator was the 2 hours.
Yeah, no, totally. I didn't read that, but that just doesn't really surprise me. Like sleep is, and we'll get into that in our recovery section where we're going to talk about in order of what is the most. Alexa's going crazy over there.
I don't know.
So go for it. So what was I just talking about? I don't remember. I was just on a roll there. I was.
Alexa didn't want you to have that.
Yeah. So I forgot where it was, but anyway. So picking back up,
stress
we were talking
loss.
the fat loss study. It's not really surprising because when we get into the recovery section here, we're going to talk about how sleep is the number one recovery tool, and nothing else really comes close to it. I think, should we switch over to recovery?
Go ahead and give them the hierarchy of recovery, because like we have to create priorities within all. Well, we don't have to, but it makes things a little bit more clear to create a hierarchy or priority on what is important, because like a lot of people will come in here and they'll ask us about supplements. What supplement can I take to help me do XYZ? Or my favorite one is, what supplements can I take to help me go to sleep? And it's like, you need to do some other things first, like before we go into, so there's a natural hierarchy that just happens anyway. But really what you're doing is creating priorities of what to look at first.
Yeah, and before we dive into that, that brings up a really good point. Like, you see this all the time where people are so focused on supplements, and they're not meeting like their sleep requirement that they should be getting. Whereas just that extra hour or two of sleep is going to be infinitely more beneficial than any amount of supplements. And they could be dumping thousands of dollars into supplements. And if they're underslept, they could just get 2 more hours, right? You're never gonna like that's. That you can't put a value on that.
Yeah.
And so sleep is free. I know there's a lot of distractions in the world we live in.
And it's easy to say, I don't have time. That's probably the one I hear the most often is either, well, I can't get to sleep anyway, or I don't have time to sleep that much. It's like, well, you might not have time, but let's make the most of the time that you do have. And so in order to do that, we need to do some other things up front, which is not what I'll do. How about this? Next Monday, I'll do a talk on all of our sleep, the stuff that we do on sleep out here to help people to get better at that. But anyway, let's jump into this.
Yeah. So this kind of hierarchy or pyramid of recovery, this isn't something I made up. So to give credit where credit is due, this is I got this from a guy named Dr. Mike Israetel, who's the founder of Renaissance Periodization. They do a lot of nutrition counseling, program design, stuff like that.
Super smart dude.
But super smart. He's a professor of exercise science at Temple University in Philadelphia. He has a PhD in sport physiology, etc. So he's a really good resource if you're really interested in this stuff and want to dive in a little deeper,
podcast.
Right? Than what we're going to get done. So anyway, good guy to check out. But anyway, so he has kind of what he calls the pyramid of recovery, and I think he just totally hits the nail on the head with this in terms of ranking. And so, so at the base of the pyramid, you have sleep. I'm just going to run through these quick, and then we'll come back and touch on each one individually. But so base of the pyramid, biggest thing, most important by far, sleep. Number 2 is being in a relaxed state throughout the day. So all the hours that you're not sleeping, keeping a relaxed state, more of a parasympathetic tone. Yeah. We'll get back to that.
That's actually what we just talked about yesterday with the like the consistency of your thoughts. Mm-hmm. If you're consistently thinking that you can't, that you have to be high strung, that you have to be like really nervous, then you're going to get a more
your outlook really affects that one. How relaxed state you're in.
It's a habit
during the day.
Practice. But anyway,
no problem. So that's number 1 and 2. Sleep, number 1. Relaxation, number 2. And Dr. Israetel, kind of the number 3 would be a tie between nutrition and active recovery. But for our audience out there, since we're more of the general population fitness, we're not dealing with a bunch of extreme athletes who need the active recovery quite as much. So for our reasons, let's put nutrition as number 3. Yeah. And active recovery is number 4.
I think you can still make a case because like most professional athletes are not working 12 hours a day.
Right. Yeah, you know, right. They have different stresses, sure.
Yeah, it's different. A lot of professional athletes aren't are able to afford for nannies and, you know, people to clean their house and stuff like, you know, so it's a like, I can see where
totally,
you know, like
even right, because going back to stress, it all is cumulative, right?
Yeah,
you could be someone who's, I mean, you might, totally.
Yeah, and even then, like, it kind of depends on how you define active recovery too. But what's the last one on it?
And then the last one, the last one is a tie between therapeutic and supplemental modalities.
Yeah.
And so we'll go. So now let's go back to the beginning for sleep.
Yeah.
And dive into that one a little bit.
And this one is kind of one of those like, like no
something
shit.
that we all know we need and no one gets enough of.
But at the same time, this goes back to you already know enough to make better decisions. It's like you already know that your vegetables are good for you. You already know that sleep is good for you. But I don't think people really realize how big of a deal it really is, and priorities, right? You know, like if you value it, you will do it. If you don't value it, you won't. One of the things I said on the show yesterday was, show me where you spend your time, show me where you spend your money, and I will show you what you value. And that I think that is that's a Stephen Covey quote, but I think I added the money part to it. But anyway, the point is, like, this stuff might be really simple and really mundane and really, but it's like, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, and totally. And generally, I think most people fall into the category of like being somewhere between 7 to 10 hours, kind of a big range. But and you might be like, oh, well, I sleep 5 hours and I'm fine. But and you might be fine, but how good could you be, right?
Right,
it's not
exactly.
Like, you can function on 5, you can get through your day, but like, let's think of the difference.
And what's your norm? Like, if you're just used to operating on 5, then 5 seems normal. Whereas if you got used to operating on 10, then I bet you're at a different level. It's like if you just sat around snorting cocaine all day and then you lived at this like crazy high all the time, and then you came back to real life.
Right.
Like, real life sucks.
You get desensitized to it, right? And you like forget how much better you could feel. Yeah. And so, but like a few questions you can ask yourself, like to know if you're getting enough sleep or not. Like, do you rely on that coffee in the morning? Like, if someone took your caffeine away, how would your day be, right?
Been there.
It would be miserable. I mean, caffeine should help with it, but you don't want to like use it as a crutch for day in and day out.
Yeah, I'm an absolute perfect example of that, because like I'll just keep on shoving it down, just being like, oh my god, I just can't get another coffee.
I think that's the norm.
And pretty soon I'm just like fuck, I can't do anything. But the thing is, like, either you're going to discipline yourself or the world's going to do it for you. And I think that's where like sleep really comes into, like, you're going to discipline yourself to get that amount of sleep, and then you're going to reap all the benefits of it, or the world's going to slap you down and it's going to give you an injury. It's going to make you sick. It's going to do something. It's going to put you in a coma eventually to get you to stop and slow down and get some rest. That was maybe a drastic example, but
no, totally. So finishing up on sleep, I would wager to say sleep is never a waste of time, because you're always recovering. It's most like watching TV can be a waste of time, but sleep is not. Like, it's not a thing where like you sleep more and you're lazy. Like, chances are you need more sleep. Get your sleep.
And there's a big difference between being lazy and relaxing.
Right.
Like, like if you're sitting around being like, I'm so lazy, you could be pushing yourself into that sympathetic state that isn't necessarily progressive for what we want, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So moving on. So number 2, the second most important thing is we call it relaxation. So keeping a state of low physical and psychological arousal as kind of your default. And so I think this would be a good time to explain the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic tones.
Kind of jumped the gun on that one, didn't I?
No, I think the easiest way to think about this, parasympathetic and sympathetic tones, they're basically 2 branches of the autonomic nervous system, meaning they're not under your conscious control. And so sympathetic is like referred to as your fight or flight response. So when you're in more of a sympathetic tone, processes are going on in your body that are getting you ready to perform. So a few examples: your heart rate increases, your blood vessels constrict, your eyes dilate, more blood is shunted away from the digestive system into the muscular system and the skin. So basically, you're throwing a bunch fuel in the fire, you're ramping up your output so you can perform. And we want a really high sympathetic tone in the weight room so we can do our best to create a big positive stressor. Yeah. But throughout the rest of the day, we want to keep that down because that's just piling on extra stress. And so we only want to use that when we need it. And then parasympathetic tone is the opposite of that. Yeah. So this is a lot of your blood is in your digestive system. That's the first priority. This is called rest and digest a lot of times. Yeah. Your blood vessels are dilated, so you're getting more nutrient delivery. Your heart rate slows down, so now you're more of a relaxed. This is like directly related to going into an anabolic state, building up. Is when you're rebuilding. Parasympathetic tone would be highest then when you're sleeping, and lowest when you're doing a really hard physical activity. Yeah,
and to go back to reiterate, like this sounds like it just helps with like bodybuilding and powerlifting, but this is how you don't get sick. This is how you don't get cancer. This is how you don't get injured. This is how you lose fat. This is how the whole show goes.
Huge and
if you live in that in that sympathetic state all the time, then your body can't actually do the things to combat all the crap that's going on in it. That could be like your body is constantly fighting off illnesses, and that's the new. Like kind of in the last 5 years, the theory on cancer is that your body is always having these rogue cells that are popping up here and there, and your body just deals with it. Well, if you don't go into that parasympathetic state, your body's not going to be able to deal with it because it's dealing with all the other stuff. So you have to create that internal focus where you can just relax and soothe out. It's like the difference between like listening to Pantera or White Zombie and Seether, and then like Amos Lee and Citizen Cope, and these like kind of more like slow. Like more
totally
relaxing.
That's like the two contrasted, like what's going on in your body. That's a good way to put it. And so you can imagine if we take someone, so let's use for our clients Rachel as an example, right, which you like to use. Like everyone knows she's like super chilled out, low, like high parasympathetic tone, and then we have someone else who's like just really anxious all the time. And so you can imagine like that person who's really anxious, and like the littlest things will kind of like make them mad or frustrated. Like they're always on high alert. They have more fuel in the fire than they need for what they're doing. That's accumulating more stress than Rachel over there, right? With the really parasympathetic tone, really low key.
And so she can focus, she can think, she can do things, whereas the other person just sitting there spinning.
Yeah,
they're going nowhere fast, essentially.
Yeah,
it's like in the old cartoons when they used to spin their wheels and then they take off. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like this is going on like the other 16 or so hours a day you're awake. And so this is really important. And so some people will need this more than others because some just default to it. And that's really good for them. Like but other people need to work on this more. Yeah. And so things like I mean, whatever helps you de-stress, but like maybe a meditative practice, a breathing practice, or just a few examples. But some people would definitely need that more than others. And so if you want to kind of capitalize on this part of the recovery, pyramid.
How are you doing with that? Because like we were talking about this the other day, how you do. Because like me, like we talk about that meditation on the show a ton, and you're talking about like a super type A, go to sit down and meditate. It's an extremely difficult thing.
Yeah.
But I do it every day. Otherwise, I'm a complete crazy person. But what's it like? You were saying some cool stuff about it because you do it a little differently than I do.
Yeah, are you talking about breathing practice or just?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, and that's not something I do a lot, but it's something that I'm kind of playing around with, like a breathing practice. So so it's kind of the thing I've been doing lately is step breathing. It's called, and so generally the idea of it is that you're using breath to create a parasympathetic tone in your body, kind of stimulate to kind of turn everything over into parasympathetic mode. So and there's a ton of different breathing practices out there, but so this one is like essentially box breathing, which is your inhale for a certain amount of seconds, hold the breath for a certain amount of seconds, exhale for a certain amount of seconds, hold the exhale for a certain amount of seconds. They're all the same duration, hence box breathing. And the one I've been doing lately is step breathing, where you like increase that over time with in between you're kind of hyperventilating to create this big repository of oxygen.
It's like if you've never done Wim Hof breathing or it's like Wim Hof meets box breathing. It's like exactly a similar thing, but it's difficult. It's It's really difficult.
Yeah.
I've never been like found like, for me, it's just kind of like the opposite of what I need to do in that space.
Yeah.
Like I'm already like too wound up.
I think my biggest strength in this area in relaxation, like I'm a really relaxed guy, and I think I'm just like a really stoic guy. So, and what I mean by that is like, I don't let my emotions get the best of me, and I recognize like what is a productive emotion and what's not. So say, for example, like I lose my phone and I'm in a rush and I can't find it. Like, I'm not going to get mad about that because I'm already screwed over by losing my phone. Now I get mad and I'm just inducing all this stress into the system for literally no reason. Right. So like, don't let your emotions get the best of you. If you're always thinking about that in a recovery setting, like, you know, you should you shouldn't get mad in general about anything, pretty much, like your initial reaction. But after that, like, you shouldn't ever.
What's the point?
Like, what's the point?
It's like the person who like something bad happens, and they go, why? Well, why? Like, knowing why doesn't help you get.
Getting mad isn't.
Why did they tow my car? Why would they do that? Why?
Like, you get into traffic.
It doesn't matter. Go get your car.
Yelling at people isn't going to speed up.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
No amount. Like,
so
you're stuck in traffic. No amount of anger is going to get them, like the cars depart to let you through.
Yeah.
So like just using logic, but like doing this meditative stuff, like definitely well, we know that like science has proven that the fight or flight portion of your brain shrinks and the logic portion of your brain expands.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
that's why that's why we're doing it. And so I think we hit that one really well. I think that's kind of the least understood about these, but it's second on the pyramid, right? It has a huge impact, mainly because it's going on all the time. That you're not sleeping. Like you can be doing better or worse.
Yeah, it's the accumulative effect of the entire day. Like there's 168 hours in a week. Maybe you're going to work out for 6 of them. That leaves 162 hours. You know, hopefully, what would that be? 40 of those are going to 8 hours a night times, what is that, times 7? No, 42 of those are going to sleep. And then, am I doing the right math there? 8 times 7? That's not 42.
No. That's 56 or something.
Yeah, 56. So hopefully 56 hours are going to sleep. But anyway, like do the math, and like you're going to find that like the 6 hours of your workout is not going to outdo all this other time that we have.
All right.
What's the next one?
So moving on, after relaxation, third on the pyramid, we got nutrition. Yeah. So obviously, like nutrition is really important. Like you need to fuel your body to get a positive, to be able to recover from positive stress. But what do you think? Like, would you say that the biggest thing, the most important thing when coming to nutrition is macronutrients? Or opposed to like, is step number one, like I would argue, like if you're thinking of this, I think the biggest thing in recovery, like not saying you should neglect micronutrients, but macronutrients, specifically protein, when you're talking about recovery is super important. Like not that one is, you can't separate them, but like if one was going to suffer, like having not getting in enough calories in general is going to be a lot more detrimental. Yeah, that's the thing when you that's one of the things when you're training somebody with that's trying to lose fat. Well, and we're trying to create a caloric deficit, so we know that they're not going to be able to recover as fast. Right. So we can't just like, that's one of the things I see in the fitness industry a lot is they try to pound people into the ground. Training can't be as intensive. Right? But yeah, it's a catch-22 because you end up getting that person injured because they can't work out that hard because they're in a caloric. So it's a funky thing. I don't think fat loss is as simple as everybody tries to make it sound. But at the same time, like if you're going for strength gain, I think it's really simple. You just gotta eat a lot of food. You're going for muscle gain. Muscle gain isn't found back here. It's found in the food that you eat. The food and the sleep that you get is how you're going to get the muscle gain. That sounds like kind of flu, like, oh, if you eat a lot of sauerkraut, you're going to be healthier. No, the food that you eat is what makes your muscle grow, not the other way around. But I think it would be silly to negate macronutrients. Totally. It's really silly. I do think protein kind of takes the front seat as far, and I think it should, but at the same time, it's gone. The pendulum has kind of swung so far with like the Atkins, paleo, keto, and really like the hardcore keto people are now. The research is now showing us that at a caloric deficit that you lose more muscle mass, and that when you're on keto with where you're trying to gain muscle, you won't gain muscle as fast. And I think that's that's really showing us is that just how powerful carbs can be towards fat loss and towards keeping muscle when you're in a caloric deficit and gaining muscle just in general.
So I do think carbs have their place.
I mean, carbs are, you're high.
For the last 40 years, they've taken the front seat, and for the last like 5 to 10, protein's taken the front seat. So I think we just got to look at it intelligently. I don't know. Maybe I ran away with your question.
No, totally. No, yeah, that's a good point. I just wanted to hear your take on it. And no, I agree. So that brings us to number 4, active recovery, right? And so active recovery is basically taking breaks from the high intensity in training. And so things like that let the body rest, like deloads, off weeks, going easy when you're feeling beat up, etc. A deload is something that everyone who's training should do at some point. You might not be like training to the point where you need totally like to take a few weeks off totally from it. Whereas
that's a good point. Well, did you define a deload yet?
No. So a deload is basically just it's a week within your programming. So this is part of your program that where you specifically plan to offload stress. And so generally what we do, I mean, the easiest way to do it, you just cut volume down and to some point intensity, but volume, sets times reps times weight, the total tonnage of weight you lifted, that's going to have the biggest effect on accumulating stress. So you cut that way back. And so for that week, you're still working on your movements, you're going through the motions and stuff, but you're like your intensity is just way lower. So you're offloading accumulated stress during those last hard weeks. And here at Grit, I mean, when we use a deload week, it serves a dual purpose, one offloading stress, but we also do it at the beginning of people's phases so that we can teach them the new movements.
Right. So we have more time to teach them the new exercises, and we get a deload, and the workout doesn't last for 3 hours.
Yeah. I thought that was just genius when I came here.
I didn't think of it. I didn't think of that. I was at somebody else's gym, and I was like, oh, that's how you guys do it. Oh, that's really smart. Oh, that's how we should do it. Okay, let's do that. That took me way too long to implement, but we've probably been doing that for like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, works super well.
Yeah, it's genius. I wish I could claim it, but deload weeks are extremely important. And some people, like if you're like a super top tier athlete, you might take like an entire month and not even show up to the gym.
Yeah, you might take it like go on vacation, get away from training so you don't get burnt out. Like people who are living that need that to prevent getting burnt out.
Bummer, we lost that one.
Yeah, we're losing connections like crazy.
But you need that to so that your body can recover, so that your brain can recover, so that you can come back and be like, oh yeah, I forgot that this was fun. Because it's really easy to forget that this is fun, and it's really easy to get bored with training when you're going for like 1 pound over the course of a year. When you get, you get a 5 pound new PR, and you're happy about that over the course of an entire year, that that's kind of hard to stay motivated. It's tough.
Totally.
But for regular people, I think everybody, you have a 40 to 60 hour a week job, you've got kids, you got life, you got a house you got to take care of, you got bills, and then you're going to come to train, and then you're going to find time to eat, and then you got to find, you're making time for all of this different stuff. I still think you got to manage that stress, and so we have to have a deload at some point.
Yeah, and just like vacation is deloading from work, right? You're just letting all that compound stress from work dissipate. It's kind of like you could say a vacation from training, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that brings us to the last one. So this is a tie between therapeutic and supplemental modalities. So therapeutic, meaning like you have a support system, you have people who care about you, which, obviously that's going to increase your state of overall well-being. Super important.
Right. The worst thing that we do to people is we put them in isolation. That's the greatest punishment that we do is we stick them in a cell without any human contact. And go crazy.
Right.
So there's something there to having love and connection with people.
Yeah. And some people need more so than others, but you just want to get what you need.
Yep.
And then the other one, supplemental modalities. These are recovery modalities or nutrition supplement modalities. So recovery, like compression, massage, cold heat contrasts type stuff,
ice pads,
all that stuff, and then the nutrition supplementation, right? Like any, there's 1,000 things.
whey protein could be in there. Beta methylbutyrate is a really common one, which the research on that was actually done at Iowa State University. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, kind of cool. Yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I think the point with this last one, the reason why it's last on the list, because it doesn't matter how much beta methylbutyrate, by the way, is it makes your muscles more tolerant to stressors. Basically, they won't break down as fast. But you can take as much of that stuff as you want. And if you're not programming intelligently, if you're not taking a deload week, if you're not sleeping as much as you're only getting 2 hours of sleep, you're I don't know, you're living in that high anxiety state all day long. Well, I don't care how much of that stuff you take, how much protein you eat, it's not going to matter. You're still going to wind up with tearing a muscle, doing something stupid, and that it's just going to end up happening. It's just inevitable.
Yeah. So there's your pyramid of recovery. And then, that takes us to adaptation, which basically is just the body adapting to meet the demands of the stress you imposed on it. And this one kind of takes care of itself. You don't really need to think about it, but but it's good to be conscious of as a measure of, are you getting what you wanted out of your training, right? Yeah. You
can think of it a little bit as a scale. The stress gets too high, and recovery gets too low. Adaptation cannot happen because. Right. Yeah. And are you even and also as a measure of just, are you imposing the right stresses, right? So our job as strength coaches, we have you can imagine, someone comes in here, I want to get stronger. Okay. There's about a trillion ways to go about that. And so our job as strength coaches is to assess them, figure out what will work best for them. So choosing what type, the specific way we're going to impose that stress to create the adaptation that we want. What they're ready for, where they are in their, what their actual age is, what their training age is, where their joints are, what do they do on a day-to-day basis. You would treat a construction worker completely different than you would probably treat a mechanic, and you'd probably treat both of them different than you would treat a person that works at a bank and sits all day. So just changes things. But anything else you want to just recap real quick on the hierarchy?
Hierarchy of recovery. Yeah, so at the base here, the number one biggest thing is sleep. By far, sleep is the most important in your recovery. Number two is keeping a state of relaxation. That low arousal throughout the day, not accumulating more stress, non-productive stress throughout your day. Number three, nutrition. Number four, your active recovery, and then number five, a tie between therapeutic and supplemental modalities.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anything else you want to get across before we go? This one's jam-packed full of content.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So just kind of a recap and just the whole thing: stress, recovery, adaptation. Stress is is creating the stimulus for the adaptation, but you need your recovery right to get 100% of that investment you put in during that stress, right? So I see a ton of people who are super diligent about going to the gym, and they set themselves up with this really good imposed stress that if they recover right, they could get a huge beneficial adaptation, but their recovery is really the thing lacking. That could be the thing holding them back. Yeah. So, and really going to the gym and putting the work in is the easy part of this equation, right? Recovery is a 24-hour nonstop thing, and there's so many different factors, and but that so you have a really good workout, you have the potential, what percent, 0 to 100% of that workout are you going to get out of the stress? Because that's where you broke the muscles down there. Now you got to rebuild them up. That happens in recovery, right?
So, that's where the magic happens. Yeah. And if you get that recovery, you get that sleep, then you're able to hit your workout with more energy, more focus. You're able to do other things that it just pays you back dividends. And it's just this positive cycle that just keeps going and going and going. Remember that if you don't discipline yourself to this way of living and this way of progressing, and you don't use this as an exercise, well, then the world is eventually going to discipline you, or your body is going to discipline you for that. And it's going to do so by setting you down somehow with an injury or something else that we definitely don't want, So either you're going to discipline you, or the world's going to do it for you. But anyway, thanks for being here, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next Thursday. Felicia Baker, she's She's the interview tomorrow, which is pretty cool. Highland Games competitor.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. Pretty cool. But anyway, can you grab your phone there?
Thanks for
I don't remember where that. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you tomorrow.